my schedule has finally cleared up to the point where I have a weekend and the right weather, and I'm out in the shop today. We're gonna put some top coat on the guitar body and start the final sand out and polishing process. I have decided to use a product called I Can't Believe It's Not Lacquer from Solar Res. I've never used this before, but we're going to do some samples and test. It is a UV cured lacquer, and it is very low volatile organic, so VOC is very low. You don't need specific respiratory equipment for it. And one of the big things is in direct UV light, like open sunshine, it cures to sandable in about 5 minutes or less. So that's pretty appealing because it's going to allow me to get a couple of coats on here and get it sanded down in really short order. You also don't need any special spray equipment. It applies with foam brush. Gonna put it on, let it flow out, and give it a cure. We're gonna do a couple of sample tests first to see how it performs. And with a little bit of luck, I'll start to get a couple of coats on. Well, the first coat is on the back and cured. Even though I let it settle out for better than 5 minutes, probably about 6 minutes or so, prior to taking it out in the sun to cure, it does have quite a few bubbles. I wouldn't go so far as to say orange peel, but it's got a few bubbles that didn't quite settle out. But they should come out fine with the sand. So I'm going to give the back here a first pass sand with 400 to smooth that out before I do the second coat. Well, I have the second coat on the back and cured. I have a few spots where I have some concern about how it's going to sand out. We'll see how far down I have to go. Overall, the second coat on top really flowed out better, much less bubbling. I'm going to try the polisher instead of the random orbit on a very low speed and just start with 600 grit and see how that handles the finish. Now that I have the first rough sand on there, I'm going to take just a little bit of denatured alcohol and dampen a cloth and just give this a good clean and see where that ends up. I'm not happy. It's been very difficult to get it laid flat and getting through some of the lower level bubbles on this without going through and hitting bare wood, which I have managed to do in one little spot here. So I got to figure out how to touch that up. Yeah, this is hard. I would say this is I'm debating about whether to take this back down to bare wood. But I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to futz around with it a little bit and see what happens. Well, yeah, I guess this qualifies as about the worst case scenario. I obviously took it all the way back down to bare wood. I sanded through in a couple of spots. I couldn't even it out. I had bubbles that I couldn't get to float out. I didn't have this problem on the samples that I did. So I'm going to chalk this one up to inadequate surface preparation on the back. Being hopeful, I don't think I'm going to have that issue on the front because the maple is so different and so much tighter grained than the ash. So I'm going to look at disaster and opportunity as two sides of the same coin, because I could have done a better job staining on the back to begin with. So this is my chance to do the redo. And yeah, chalk it up to learning experience. So I got to restain it. I think I'm going to do a burst since that worked out pretty well on the front. And yeah, back to not quite square one. Well, I kind of thought that I was going to be done with all the dyeing, but that was not to be the case. I have completely stripped down the back all the way to the bare wood, re-sanded it and everything out, better surface prep this time, gave it a second coat of grain filler, went back over it to 600. I have re-stained it. Its back's a little bit different than the first time I stained it. I did a little bit more of a burst kind of look to match the front a little more, which actually I kind of like better than the first try. It's, noticeably smoother than the first time. So I'm hoping that this surface prep will take care of things, and I won't have the same kind of problem with the finish flowing out. It has got me considering whether the solar res, like I need more, work and practice or whatever with that finish before I try it again. But we'll see. I guess the only other alternative I was really thinking about was a rubbed oil finish, which would of course make it more of a satin look than the solar res, which is going to be pretty glossy. So I'm going to have to contemplate that. But this needs to dry out, and my finishing work for the day is done.